Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Ability Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today we have Jeff, and I know he's going to drop some gold on this episode. So, Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Nick, thanks for having me on here, man. And I just want to thank you for being you and being an inspiration for other people to move beyond circumstances and show up in, and create the life that you want. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I do. I work with middle-aged men who are feeling stuck and unhappy with their body, and just trying to overcome a lot of these patterns that I feel like so many of us, right, of like, too much time on screens, right? Not eating well, not exercising enough, generally just not taking good care of our bodies. And then, one day we wake up and, either we don't like what we see in the mirror, or, even worse is like, we develop some sort of disease or chronic condition. So I, want to help people avoid ending up down that path.
Awesome. And are you taking more of a holistic health approach?
Yeah, I think you have to. And one of my biggest, I guess gripes is the ways in which we separate physical health and mental health, right? And I think the two of them, they're so intertwined, they're so interconnected that it doesn't really make sense to just work on one without the other, right? Because if you just do talking and working on your mindset, but you're not taking care of your body, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not putting the right nutrients in your body, right, then of course, your mood is going to be off. Your energy is going to be off, right? Your emotions are probably going to be out of whack because your hormones and your neurotransmitters are not quite in balance, right? And the other way is, I know, even if you have the best exercise routine in the world or the best diet, right? If you don't have the right mindset, then you can still feel this sense of, meaninglessness or like my life doesn't have any purpose or I'm just feeling lost, right? So like I say, it's not the size of your bicep that matters. It's the size of your heart. And then what you use that strength and power for.
Yep, I agree. And the healthier your body is, the better your mind works. I actually just read a study on that a while back, and it's basically, the bigger you go, unfortunately, the slower your mind works.
I'm curious, Nick, what are some of the lessons that you've learned? What are some of the things that you do to help take care of your body? I mean, you've done, I feel like, so much to obviously, get to where you are.
Yeah. So, I started out by, just taking care of my mindset. Like you were talking, people tend to separate their physical health from their mental. And I started more on the mental side, but then that, showed me the path to, hey, I gotta also take care of my body. So once I started to eat healthier and exercise, it's like you get a new brain. It's like you can think a lot better. And I know this is true because, unfortunately, I went down a path where I stopped taking care of my health. I started eating, crappy foods again. I didn't exercise as much, and I got depressed. I didn't feel like I had a purpose, even though my actual purpose in life didn't change, but the way I felt did.
Yeah.
And that was a big eye opener. So now I'm, back to eating healthy again and exercising and just taking care of my body. And then I know that's going to take care of my mental health because, I started to feel just down. I didn't want to do anything. And that's not something that a business owner can ever feel. We have a lot to do, so we got to keep going.
You do, me too.
And the cool thing...
that your well-being is the foundation for your well-doing in the world. Right? I know that everyone here listening, like they want to do good things in the world, right? But you can't do that if you're not taking care of your body. And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate, right? Of like going through periods of like, oh, I'm working out, I'm eating well, And then I go through some periods of like, no, like, I stopped exercising, started eating kind of more junk, whatever. I'm curious, like, what caused that shift? Like, why did you stop exercising, or why did you stop eating healthy?
I wish I had a good answer. I've been asking myself the same thing. It's why? I don't know if it's like convenience, or it's always easier to eat the junk food than the healthy food, but that's still not a good enough reason. So I take full responsibility. It's something that I shouldn't have done, and I'm turning around now. So yeah.
Well, that question is exactly what I help guys work with, is figuring out, hey, like, right, why, even though I know up here that, like, I should be doing some exercise, or I should be eating, some more vegetables or whatever, but yet I still keep doing all this other stuff, right? And why does that keep happening? And as you said, I think there's three things. There's one is the convenience, right? Our environment is going to drive us to certain habits and behaviors. In fact, that's most of life, right? Is just these unconscious parts of ourselves. They're just running on autopilot, and that's just helps us just get through the day. And then when it comes to food specifically, there's the pleasure, right? There's a lot of pleasure from eating. It's an easy source of just a quick hit of gratification. And then there's also a social piece, right? Connection and belonging. And those three things, right? Pleasure, belonging, and convenience really just drive people to kind of go towards the easiest eating option, even if at one level that's not actually what's going to help you, right? Show up, think clearly, right? Have the body, have the health, have the energy that you want.
Yeah, and you got to look at food as your fuel. That's how I like to look at it. It's like it's fuel. So, for me, I'm a car enthusiast. I want to put good fuel in my car so it performs better. Your body's the same way. It'll perform better when you eat healthier foods, especially like organics, Yeah,
well, and what you said, I think, is really important. I want to repeat it, right? The part where you said, you know what? I take full responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And I think that is really key, right? And it's like, it's not your fault if you're eating a bunch of junk and, but it is your responsibility to do something about it, right? Because let's be real, right? Like our society, our environment, right? Like all of these things push us to eat a certain way, right? Like the standard American diet is set up for profits. It's not set up for your health.
No.
And again, so it's not your fault, right? Like we're talking like these foods are engineered to override your fullness signals. They're engineered to make you want to overeat, right? And again, not your fault that like we're living in this environment that's set up kind of against our bodies to live optimally. Yet at the end of the day, we do all have to do whatever we can, whatever is within our power, and take some responsibility for changing that, right? And for some people, that might mean, maybe trying to like cook one extra meal at home, or that might mean, ordering a side of salad instead of a side of French fries, right? Or, right, like, it doesn't have to be big changes. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. But there are little things that we can all do to just, again, start to help shift that trajectory of where you're going to end up. Because if you keep eating the same way, right? If you keep eating the same way now, all right, for the next year, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, right? Where are you going to end up? That's an important question.
Yep, exactly. And like for me, I have cerebral palsy. So before, when I was eating healthy, taking care of my body, exercising, the pain that I experienced dropped significantly. And I started to function a lot better. So that right there tells you a lot. It's like, okay, just mainly just eating healthier. Because like, I would exercise, but it was like 7 minutes in the morning. That was it. It's not like a big amount of time. It's not like I'm spending hours at the gym. It's just small little things make a big difference.
Yeah.
And
Nick, that's a really important piece, as well, of like, it doesn't have to mean 2-hour sessions at the gym, right? It's like you can do your 7-minute workout. You can go for your 15-minute walk. All of these things really do make a difference, right? And the point about pain as well, right? The number one step number one, right, is get out of pain, right? Nobody wants to live in pain. That's not the way we should be, spending our time on this precious, journey around the sun that we have. But here's what's counterintuitive, right? When we're in pain, often the last thing we want to do is exercise. Often the last thing we want to do is move our body because it hurts. Yet often it's actually moving our body that actually helps get rid of that pain. Right? If you have the right type of exercise program, you have the right type of movements that can actually help you, right, develop the strength, can help you rewire some of that neural patterning and help you lessen pain signals. So I think that part is hard, right? Because it's a huge block. If you are in pain or some sort of chronic discomfort, you might not want to move or exercise, yet that could be the very thing that's going to help the most.
Yep, I agree. And, like I said, I know firsthand. And so, what's usually the first step that you take with your clients?
I have a conversation, and I really want to understand, what does a day in the life of Nick look like, right? I want to know, right? Like, when do you get up in the morning? What's the very first thing you do when you wake up, right? Like, do you look at your phone, right? Do you go, downstairs and, journal, right? Do you have family or kids to take care of? Do you walk the dog, right? Do you make yourself breakfast? Do you stop by and get a coffee, right? Like, I want to know all of these things. So we take a deep dive in, and right, I'm trying to meet you right in the middle of your life and understand, what makes you tick, right? What is your lifestyle like? And this is the idea of when, wellness coaching, but with like lifestyle is medicine. And if we can shift some of these things, right? Shift some of the, and again, they're little tiny pieces. Maybe, we just need to find a way for you to get to bed earlier. Well, the question is, what's keeping you up at night, right? Are you on your phone? Are you doing more work? Are you out with friends, right? And it's like all of these pieces are connected, because you can't just take away one thing, right? Because if I say, hey, we can't just make a rule and say, you got to go to bed at 10 o'clock. Well, that's the time when I talk to some of my friends at night, right? Because now we're losing that social connection, and that's not going to be good for our well-being. So we need to make sure we look at things from a very connected and a very holistic lens. So that's what I try to do when I'm working with people, is really get a good lay of the land of what your life is like. And then we go in there and we try to adjust some of these pieces to try to make it flow better, to try to make it function better.
I like that a lot, because you're not taking like a one-size-fits-all approach. You're really getting to know your client, figuring out exactly what they need, and then you help them through that journey. And I think that's very important.
Because at the end of the day, Nick, right, I think, most people, and probably a lot of people are, listening to the show, it's like, they kind of know what to do, right? It's like, right? Taking a 20-minute walk is going to be better than doing no exercise, right? It's like, eating a couple of vegetables is going to be better than having like entirely fried food, right? It's like, so people, it's like, what you to do, but yet you aren't doing it, right? So it's a problem of implementation. It's a problem of taking this insight and turning it into action. And that's where, a really personalized coaching approach is so helpful, right? Because we can figure out, well, okay, how do we actually help you put this into action in your life? And a lot of times it has to do with identity, right? A lot of times we think of ourselves as like, oh, I'm not the type of person who exercises, right? And that becomes a block, a barrier, right? Or we think of, we're raised eating a certain way, and we don't realize how that history, all of these, everything we learned in childhood about eating from our family, from our culture, right, is influencing our habits. So we need to kind of sort through that. Right. And these, this requires a much more customized approach, and it really does work. But obviously, this is, it's hard. It's hard work to kind of go in there and audit all of your life.
It is. And, it's all habits, and we just get in this pattern of life, and it's hard to break through. But when you have a coach like yourself, I think the biggest piece to coaching that really is why it works is the accountability. Would you agree with that?
I would say accountability is one of the most important pieces.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the only one, but it's huge.
No,
right?
It's like one of the most important things.
Totally. Yeah. Because, all of us, right, like, we're more likely to show up. We're more likely to follow through when we know that somebody else there is counting on you. right? But at the end of the day, it's like, I like to say, I'm not here to be like a coach for compliance, right? Because that's just like, I'm not here to be your parent. I'm not here to slap you on the wrist because, oh, you didn't do your workout today, right? I'm going to be a compassionate coach. I want to understand, again, what's going on mentally and physically, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm here to empower you to do this on your own. At the end of right, what I care about the most is actually helping you develop the accountability to yourself. And if that doesn't work, then it's like, we're going to make you accountable to your future self, right? Like Nick, either that's Nick tomorrow who's going to wake up and say, oh, why did I eat that, right? Or Nick 10 years from now who's going to look back and say, you know what? Thank you, man. Thank you for taking such good care of me, because guess what? I've got the strength and the vitality now to continue to live the life I want to live.
Yep. I like that. And like, I think a lot of times what we do is we kind of guide our clients on a journey to help them realize how bad they want something. And when you want something bad enough, you're going to do it. You know, so it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And there's an important part in there that holds people back, right? Is because we can say we want one thing, right? I can say, oh, I want to exercise, or oh, I want to eat better. But what we don't always acknowledge is that, well, we also, want to earn money and be good at work, or I also want to be a really good parent, or I also, care a lot about, this sports team, right? And so we have competing commitments, and those get in the way. And then a lot of times we end up prioritizing these other things over our health. And until we figure out, oh, all right, we got to look inside and see what are the competing commitments getting in the way. And then we can kind of reshuffle that. And then we can make it clear. Because as you said, it's like, everything we do has an internal logic, but it's sometimes that logic isn't always visible, right? So that's what we got to make the invisible visible.
Yep, exactly. And the more we do something, the easier it gets. So it's just taking that first step and then doing it again the next day and the next day. You'll just keep taking the steps towards what you want.
And the very first step is always the hardest one.
It is.
How did you, what was the shift for you to like pull yourself out of this kind of, victim mentality to a place where you actually felt empowered to change your life?
For me, going way back, 3-4 years ago, that's when I got started in all this, self-development, all that. And for me, I was so down in a hole that I was depressed. I was suicidal. And I just knew that something had to change. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be around. That was the hard truth that thankfully I was able to realize before it got worse. So then I started doing research and, figuring out like how to help yourself, and I've always been one to where I don't talk about things with others. I bottle it up. I keep it to myself. So for me, what I did is I found a couple podcasts that I liked and a couple books. And I just started listening to the podcast every day. And that podcast is called the Mindset Mentor by Rob Dial. It's a really good podcast, all about mindset, all about self-help, all about figuring out who you are as a person. And through that journey, I realized like, okay, my whole life, I was always in the mindset of why am I like this? Why do I have cerebral palsy? What did I do to deserve this? That was my mindset my whole life. And through, my self-development journey, I realized I have this for a reason. It makes me who I am, and it's also a great way for me to help others. There's a lot of people struggling with the same things that I struggle with, and they don't know what to do. So now I use my voice to help them and encourage them to get up and find what their purpose is like I did. Because once you find your purpose in life, the whole world just opens up. You have a reason to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Like, But I look back, like, every morning, it was just, I wake up and it's like, why get up?
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a why. My why is I'm going to help at least one person today, and I'm also going to get at least 1% better than myself today. So that's my daily commitment right in the morning. And then when you have that, it's just your whole life just gets a whole lot better.
Nick, hearing you say that, man, it's making me smile. It's making my heart light up with joy and with hope. And that anybody who's listening to this right now, if you're feeling that way, where it's like, hey, it's hard for me to get up. I don't know what I'm doing with my day. I don't know why I'm here, right? Like there is possibility. And I think what you just named, right? We can all shift from this place where life is happening to me and I feel like, oh, like I got dealt a crappy, hands. This does not fair. Oh, pity me. So life is happening by me. Actually, I have some choice and control and I can actually create the future that I want. And then even beyond that, life is happening for me. Like I heard you, Nick, say that it's like, you know what? Like all of this, like, like I have some, things that are, make me different, but like, that's actually not a barrier. That's actually why I'm here. That actually gives me a gift. It gives me a unique perspective. It allows me to share something with the world. Now, all of a sudden, you begin to see all of your challenges. You begin to see all of your obstacles is actually the very reason to show up on this planet. And the best medicine is obviously giving to others, helping others, because we're all connected. And when we uplift up other people, we actually help pull ourselves up.
Yep, I like that. And it's good to talk about your struggles, because if you can talk about your struggles and talk about how you got through them, that's going to help somebody else. If that just helps one person, and then that person is better because of that, guess what? They're going to help another person. And it's just going to be like a domino effect. So, like, for me, when I say I help one person a day, I know that I'm actually helping at least 10. That's the truth. And that's what makes me feel good. There's no amount of money or no item on this earth that can make you feel better than when you just simply help somebody else. This episode of the Infinite Abilities podcast is brought to you by the one and only Infinite Toolbox, where just like all other toolboxes, we will get the job done, guaranteed. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to save time, boost revenue, or automate your processes, Infinite Toolbox has got you covered. With powerful tools designed to drive leads, expand your reach, and gain your industry secrets, we help you work smarter, not harder. Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Visit us at infinitetoolbox.com. That's infinitetoolbox.com. And discover how infinite your potential really is.
Again, I'm smiling because I was just watching the movie Klaus. I don't know if you've seen, like an animated kind of Christmas movie. It's a wonderful movie. I was watching it with my son. He's 2. But there's a line in the movie that says, right, like a true selfless act always sparks another.
Yep.
Right? Like a simple act of kindness always sparks another. And it's such a beautiful message. And I think that's exactly what you're saying here. And it's hard, right? And especially as men, as you said, like we're kind of taught to bottle it up, right? It's like, oh, this is my problem. Like 1, like I don't want to like dump that on other people, right? But 2, there's also this sort of, myth of, this rugged, independent guy. I can figure it out. I can do it on my own, right? We just kind of grin, we bear through it, we push through it. But, let me tell you, like, we're not meant to go on this journey alone. Nope. It's like we need each other and it's okay, right? And so like there's a certain degree of vulnerability. That's hard, right? It's hard for all of us, no doubt. And especially for, I think, a lot of men, like it can be especially hard. But once you break that seal, right, and then you open it up, and that allows for healing. And then once you start healing, guess what? Now you can start moving forward, right? You don't feel stuck anymore, right? Life, you begin to see, starts to kind of take on its own flow.
Yep. Exactly. I love that. You know, I love everything that you're about. You're amazing. I know you're an incredible coach. So for everybody listening, how can they reach out to you?
Find me at Jeff Siegel Wellness is my name. I try to make it super easy where people can find me online. Google Jeff Siegel Wellness on my website, or on Instagram, Facebook. And, again, if you're feeling down and out and you recognize that you need to take better care of your body or change your relationship with yourself, reach out. I'd love to connect and figure out how to help you take that right next step.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then I ask every guest the same question towards the end, and that is, my slogan is, your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
Wow, it's a wonderful slogan, and I truly do think that our minds really are infinite in their possibility for imagination, and I think it's actually the loss of imagination that tends to be so problematic, because when we lose the ability to imagine a future that's different from the one that we've been living, then we lose hope. We lose faith that our futures can be bigger and better than our past. We lose the motivation to change because we can't even picture what this life would be like. And so a lot of times we just need to reignite that imagination. And sometimes that just means talking to somebody else, getting a fresh perspective, or, shaking it up. You got to break the habit of being you and see that there's so much more out there. And so to me, living, with infinite ability is really like this question of like, what would you do if you had no fear? All right. What would you do if you weren't scared? How would you live your life? All right. And then start from there.
I like that. And, we all will let fear hold us back. And for me, I like to get out of my comfort zone, because that's where you're going to grow, and that's where the change is going to happen.
Beautiful. Well said, Nick. I mean, you're an inspiration, just by who you are. And I think that is the important piece, right? Again, change who you think you are and everything else changes. So I always tell people, it's like, don't get overly focused on like this habit or this food, right? It's like, you got to start by changing who you think you are, right? You got to build a future idea of yourself, and then all the other pieces start to fall in place.
Yep, they do. Awesome. All right, this has been really great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's wonderful connecting and chatting with you.
Of course. If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me here, the Nick Earhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.